There's two different ways that I'm gonna have a lifter warm up at a powerlifting meet, depending if it's their first time or if they've got some experience with competing. So in the next few minutes, what I'm gonna show you is exactly how to use both methods, how to pick which one's best for you, and basically how to prime yourself for your opener and eventually the PR on your third attempt with perfect timing, regardless of if it is your first time competing or your 15th. And if you are looking to hit PRs at your next meet, but you're feeling like you're stuck in a plateau right now and just frustrated with it all, you can click the link down in the video description and I'll personally reach out to talk about what would working together look like, and we can go from there. My name is Matt Taylor, and I've coached to a national level and competed and won at a world level personally. And regardless of the level of competition, I'll always see lifters get caught off guard when there's a schedule change or the meet moves faster than they expected, or there's the differences between the squat, the bench, and the deadlift in terms of how long each attempt will take. And what'll happen is they'll either get stuck rushing their warm-ups or they'll end up getting things done too early and going cold before they walk out for their opener. So I think most lifters are going to be pretty familiar with the idea of taking your last warm-up maybe like 10-ish minutes before your opener to make sure that you're recovered, you're ready to go for your first attempt, but you're not resting for too long. And then they'll also have some pretty good numbers in mind for what they want to hit to work up to that. You know, what percentage of their opener do they want to take? That's this column down the middle here. But the reality is that there's a lot of chaos going on at a powerlifting meet. And keep in mind, like most of these are volunteer run events. So sometimes the organizers and specifically the volunteers are really experienced and other times they're not. And there can be some variables there too. And what that all adds up to is that some meets move really fast and others take a really long time to go through a flight or multiple flights or each of the lifts. Now, typically speaking, what I've found is on average, squats are gonna be about 75 seconds per attempt. We'll come back to this in a second. Bench is pretty similar and deadlifts can be 45 to 60 seconds or so. So starting to warm up, 20, 25 minutes before your flight is a good starting point. But if there's a flight before you, or there's a delay, or a power outage, or somebody gets injured in the flight before you, all these things can mess with the timing. And then you'll end up having to like rush and cram or pull your warm-ups back and really stretch them out. And that leads to a lot of variability. And so while having the timing on a rough idea is gonna be better than nothing, you're never gonna be able to really anticipate the exact flow of like competing IRL. Because, as that old Mike Tyson quote goes, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Everyone's got a plan at a powerlifting meet until they decide to skip the break between squat and bench. And so bringing this back to first time versus experienced lifters, right? First time lifter, I'm typically gonna just reduce how much thinking they have to do on the day. Your goal is learning how to compete. And so if we are a little off on the numbers and we don't hit the best possible performance, that's okay. It's a local meet, it's your first time. And so generally speaking, let's say you've got a meet that starts at 9 a.m. and you're 6th in the flight, okay? So no flights before you, nothing like that. Now, what you can do with something like this is you can say, okay, great. Well, if I'm gonna lift at 9, I'm 6th lifter in the flight, probably starting to lift about 9:06, give or take. Now, from there, I can just work backwards and say 10 minutes out, 15 minutes out, and work my way down that list. And it's gonna be a great starting point to just get the groove of like, okay, how does it feel warming up? How do I feel with these longer rests and all that? And then once we have a couple of meets under our belt, we'll go into this second strategy, okay? Now these are not minutes out. Instead, we're actually gonna base it on how the meet is flowing, especially as we get into multiple flight kind of scenarios. Let's say you're flight B. This is where we're gonna wanna watch the scoreboard. So pulling up something like lift cast or simple meet and counting the number of attempts until you're up for your opener is the really simple way to go at this, because it's going to account for the flow, and if there's delay and some lifters take longer, and if there's a really big spread between the first lifter and the last lifter where there's like 3 extra reds on the bar, that takes more time to unload, and that can really throw your timing off if you're using a really strict model like this. And so what you're going to do is, if you are the 6th lifter in flight B, what you're gonna do is you're gonna count backwards. So if you're 6, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, there's 6 attempts to go there, right? And then count backwards into the flight before you as well. And so we're gonna make sure our last warm-up happens 8 attempts before our opener. And so that's gonna be basically the bottom of thirds of the flight before you in this example, right? Now, it's probably gonna be about the start or middle of thirds for your second to last warm-up. We're probably looking around bottom of seconds for our third to last, and so on. And so while this does take a bit more monitoring, it allows you to be a lot more precise with your timing for your warm-ups. And if you've got a handler, this is like the perfect task for them, right? Because instead of just watching the clock, which is gonna run independently from everything that's gonna happen on the platform ultimately, sometimes the lifter's gonna miss, they gotta unload and reload all these extra plates, all that kind of stuff, right? It takes time and it's not predictable. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to have a plan that works in real time instead of just a plan that lives in the planning stage. And don't get me wrong, like we want to match the level of complexity with the lifter and their experience and their goals for the meet. And so we need to have this like baseline understanding of, okay, how do we warm up first? And like, does 10 minutes work really well for you? Or do you go cold where we bring it more like 7 or 8? But if we can be more accurate and our goal is to be as competitive as possible and we have the experience where it's not gonna overwhelm you, well, great, now we can be more precise, and that's gonna help with building more confidence and feeling like you're staying in the flow on meet day instead of getting caught off guard by something. And that in turn is gonna help you hit the biggest possible PRs. And so again, if you are looking for help with hitting the biggest possible PRs at your next meet, or you're trying to break some state or national records, or you're just stuck in a plateau right now and you're just ticked off with the whole thing and you wanna get the ball rolling, you can click the link down in the video description and I will personally reach out, no bots or anything. I'll personally reach out to see how I can help you with all that.